Okay,
And
very
you are
good.
live.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. We will now begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. I'm going to ask for a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Very good. The ayes have it. We do have two items that are up for public hearing this afternoon. The procedures are simply going to be this, and that is we'll read in the proposal for the conditional use. Then what we'll do is we will receive a report from the planning department. After that report, we'll ask for those that are here that wish to testify before the committee. We'll ask for you to be sworn in from a member of our law department. We're going to ask you to provide for us your name and your address, and we'll give you a few minutes to testify before the committee. After that, we'll close the public hearing. We'll open it up to questions from the committee members and then the council members, and we'll invite everyone back this evening at 7 o'clock, whereas we will basically repeat that procedure. However, the difference is that at 7 o'clock, after the public hearings, the committee will make a recommendation to all of council, either to pass the conditional use request, to take time, or to table the item, or to turn down the conditional use request. So those are the procedures that we're going to follow this afternoon. And so with that, the first item that's up for public hearing is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct an outdoor advertising display at 389 Fountain Street. Mr. Antonucci is here to report on that for the planning department. Mr. Antonucci.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Kenjo Outdoor Advertising LLC is requesting permission to place an outdoor advertising display or a billboard to a height of 90 feet on this property. The double-sided billboard would be located approximately 120 feet south of the existing building along the west side of the property. The static display panels, each 48 feet in width and 25 feet in height for 1,200 square feet. The zoning code restricts the size of a billboard in a commercial district to 672 square feet in area. This proposal at 1,200 square feet is 528 square feet over that, which is almost double the size. The magnitude of the size request was not explained to the Planning Commission, which was an error. However, the planning staff recommends that the billboard faces be limited to 672 square feet in area, which is consistent with the size of the nearby sign on the west side of Route 8. The proposed sign would stand at an overall height of 90 feet above grade, supported by a stepped steel monopole column. Section 153-385 of the zoning code establishes the development requirements for advertising displays permitted as a conditional use. The zoning code requires a minimum distance of 1,000 feet measured along the street lines between outdoor advertising displays. Clear Channel Outdoor was granted permission to construct a digital billboard on the west side of State Route 8, south of Beacon Street. The display and the one proposed would be approximately 600 feet apart as measured along Fountain and Beacon Streets. In addition, the ground bulletin is limited in height to the lesser of 50 feet or the height district in which it is located. In this instance, the billboard would be limited to 50 feet in height, 40 feet less than proposed. Planning staff recommends that the overall height of the proposed billboard be limited to 75 feet above grade at which it is to be constructed. So this height would be approximately 55 feet above the grade of the highway. Moreover, this compromise in height will keep the display below the level of the tree foliage to the east, screening the display from view of the residential neighborhood. Petitioner submitted a survey that shows the nearby digital sign on the west side of State Route 8 that was approved previously to be a total height of 105 feet and 77 feet above the State Route 8 pavement elevation. This is 23 feet higher than the originally proposed height of the existing billboard, which was to be 54 feet above the south State Route 8 pavement elevation. The proposed billboard is within an industrial area with nearby retail and commercial activity and highway traffic at a height of 75 feet and faces at 672 square feet in area The billboard should not impose on the neighboring uses and should contribute to a vibrant business climate by providing an efficient means of communicating with consumers. The planning staff recommends approval, subject to the conditions discussed, which would be a limit of 75 feet in height and 672 square feet in area. The Planning Commission recommends approval subject to conditions and it being comparable to the existing nearby billboard on the west side of State Route 8. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Antonucci, for that. I'll ask that the representative from our law department please swear in those that wish to speak this afternoon, reference the conditional use on Fountain.
Okay, those wishing to testify during this public hearing, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? If so, please answer I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. I had seen that a few folks had raised their hand, wish to testify. I'll let either one of you two gentlemen go first. I don't know if you're together or not, but anyone, are you both in favor?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm actually here for sheets. I wasn't sure if you were swearing everybody in at once. So
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, if Benjamin and Dan are together on the billboard, whichever one of you two would like to testify first, please feel free to.
Thank you. My name's Dan Nielsen. I'm the applicant and Ben is my attorney, but I'll be doing most of the speaking. And thank you everyone for your time and consideration today. A few things I'd like to address. So the height of the billboard, I think, is been discussed, and Mike talked about it. If there was a way for me to share my screen, I'd like to do that. But if I can't, I will do my best to describe over share screen.
Yes, you can share your screen.
Okay, so I think I just did it. Okay, hopefully everyone can see my screen.
Yep.
Okay, so as Mike described, there is a billboard that is roughly 600 some feet south of my current application. The zoning code says that the spacing between billboards should be measured on properties abutting those streets. We abut Fountain Street, and the other billboard does not abut either Beacon or Fountain Street. It's actually a street south of there. So we personally felt that the 1,000 feet spacing measurement didn't apply, but it doesn't sound like staff has they brought it up. It doesn't sound like they're objecting to it. But I want to discuss that billboard particularly because the height measurement. So I applied for a 90 foot tall sign because of the height of State Route 8 and the comparable billboard 600 feet south of my billboard. It's survey is not in this application, but it's okay. So the existing billboard is 77. If you can see this screen right here, it's roughly 77 feet above the pavement of State Route 8. Hopefully this drawing makes sense, but you can see where it says pavement, State Route 8, and then to the top of the sign. So which would be, I'll call it 75. My sign I applied for is 70 feet above pavement. So actually 5 feet less than the existing sign. And Planning Commission actually recommended that I be given this similar height. They actually recommended the same height as the clear channel board, but I just kept my application at 70 feet overall above State Route 8 pavement. My application overall is for a 90-foot billboard because where I'm placing the billboard is 20 feet below State Route 8. So you can see that the existing billboard on this page is 105 feet tall, but it's 75 feet above the pavement. The other thing I'd like to address is the area. I applied in an industrial area where Mike is right. Mike Antonucci said that size is limited to 672 in commercial areas. My billboard is in an industrial zone property within the zoning map, and the limitation is based on ODOT recommendations, which I have an ODOT permit. I've sent it with my application, but it is for 1,200 square feet, so bigger than the existing billboard, but allowed by ODOT and not disallowed by the zoning code. This area recommendation to 672, I'm a little frustrated with because I applied in July for this exact application, which is 4 months ago. this area recommendation came to me as of this morning at 9 a.m. This kind of was popped up on me. So I apologize for not having great information or response to it, but I wasn't given a lot of time, and I would prefer to keep my application as it stands at 1,200 square feet. And because I'm in the industrial zoned area on a waste management facility, I feel like it's appropriate. But I would ask staff take these three things into recommendation. Again, the area, the height, my explanations for those both, and then I'm here to answer any questions. And again, I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'm going to ask if there's anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of this conditional use on Fountain Street for a ground sign. Outdoor advertising display. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against the conditional use request? 389 Fountain Street. Anyone wishing to speak against? I'm not seeing anyone, Sarah. We don't have anyone signed up either.
We do not have anyone else signed up for this one.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We'll close the public hearing and we'll open it up to questions from the committee. Is there any questions from any committee members at this time? Reference this proposal on Fountain Street. Any questions from any committee members? Okay, seeing any. Is there any questions from any council members in reference to this conditional use request? Mr. Malik, I see your hands up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess two questions for the planning department. First, if the height was permitted at the level requested by the petitioner, would it then be visible to the neighbors in the residential neighborhood to the south? I guess that's the first question.
Well, so we think so. Part of the problem that we have is that the petitioner, we did ask for there to be a mock-up, basically that the board goes up and we see how high that is and how it looks. We didn't really get that from the petitioner. So we really didn't have a lot to go on based other than, looking at, just the area itself and working with, Google images and things like that to try to sort of get a sense of the height. And also to be consistent with what we thought was in terms of the height district classifications of, in that particular area, the height district classification is an H2, which allows to 50. So we thought if we go one above to 75, that's reasonable and would be, comparable to the other one, which is a height district of H3, and you're going a height above that, it's 105 feet. So it's comparable in terms of the height district designations there. So we thought the 75 feet would be a good compromise on the height. And we did feel that it would be somewhat below the tree line to where it wouldn't be as visible to the neighbors nearby.
Okay. And then the second question is there, I'm looking at the write-up, is there an area requirement that's less than the 1,200 feet that was discussed?
Well, so the zoning code caps it at 672. The zoning code doesn't specify anything higher than 672. It does say commercial, that is true, in a commercial district, but there was a period where if you look at the old zoning code, prior to billboards requiring conditional use approval, they weren't permitted in U5 industrial districts. So it only went to U4 commercial. So 672 is the max. I can tell you, I don't believe we have any that are 1,200 square feet in the city. 672 are those the digitals that you see along the expressway. Those are all at 672, and we feel that that's reasonable and comparable to the one along State Route 8 on the west side nearby, and all the other billboards that we have along the expressways.
Okay, but just looking at the ordinance and the write-up, if we pass this, there wouldn't be an area limit on it. It could be built at 1,200 square feet.
1,200 square feet is what the petitioner is requesting. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Movian?
My questions were the same as Councilman Malley. What I'm trying to understand, are you approving what they're requesting? Or are we looking at the reduction that the staff is recommending?
We're
What is
looking at
the committee?
Yes, so the planning staff is recommending a reduction in height from the 90 feet that's proposed to 75 feet, and a reduction in the size from 1,200 square feet to 672 square feet, which is a standard, maximum size of billboards. The Planning Commission looked at the other billboard and recommended that this one be comparable to that. So the Planning Commission, in effect, was okay with the height to be 90 feet, 90 feet in height. We did not, although we reported to the Planning Commission that the size was 1,200 square feet, we really didn't explain the magnitude of that with respect to, 672 being the max and the standard that we have in the city.
So therefore, we'd have to amend it. Mr. Antonucci?
Yes, we would have to put a condition on it, on the ordinance to, if we were to go with staff, if council was to go with staff recommendation, would, put a condition that it be limited to a height of 75 feet and a square footage of 672 per face.
Would you have to go back to the commission to make sure they understand what the staff is recommending and providing to council for approval? Because it sounds like the two were not.
Well, we could do that. Although in the planning commission report, we do say that the square footage is 1,200 square feet. It just wasn't explained that, we had, it was caught late, to be honest with you, after planning commission. So no, we didn't explain to them, the commission, that the size was that much different, much bigger than what standard size is, 672, or our maximum.
Unless there's a rush on this, it sounds to me that it needs to go back to commission to me for us to make sure that they understand. And I know we still can we can vote on it, but I certainly would like to, because petitioner sounds like he is going with, where is he getting his figures from? He said he got from MoDOT, from somebody other than the city.
Thank you. Sorry.
Go ahead, Dan.
So the 672 max is, there's two limits in the Akron zoning code. One is on, I believe, commercial, and then the other one, I actually have it up. There's a limitation on like commercial grade, and then there's commercial use districts and business districts. That's what it is. Their surface area display shall not exceed 300 square feet within retail business use districts and 672 square feet within commercial use districts. I'm not within those districts. I'm within an industrial district. It does say, the zoning code does say, to erect a billboard, I need an ODOT permit, which I have for 1,200 square feet. So ODOT has signed off on my 1,200 square feet, which is what I originally applied for, because I didn't feel that these size districts apply to me, this 300 square feet and this 672, which is, I think, where a little confusion has come from. There are maximums in those two districts. I fully agree. I'm not in those two districts, so I personally don't feel like those should apply to me. And so that's the area argument. And then the height argument, I think I stated my case that the planning commission recommended I be similar to the existing billboard, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a follow-up question, please?
Sure.
Mr. Antonucci, what do you do when our regulations don't speak to the area that he's addressing?
Well, again, we feel that there's no other height, or rather size designation beyond 672. And at the time, we did not allow billboards in a U5. Now they're required to have a conditional use. So that the largest size that's denoted in the zoning code is 672 square feet. I think it's a little bit of, maybe finding a little loophole on the commercial and not industrial. Our maximum is 672, and you're not going to find, if you look at the billboards that we have on the expressway, this 1,200 square feet would almost be twice that, or rather double that, those sizes. So this would be very large at 1,200 square feet.
Okay. Are you
Thank you.
okay, Ms. Mobian?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Malik?
Thank you. Just briefly, I think you addressed this, Mr. Antonucci, but there are no billboards in the city of Akron that are greater area than 672.
I don't believe so.
Okay. This is a good lawyer answer there, Antonucci. The second is this is a digital billboard, right? That would seem to also kind of, it's digital billboard, right?
Oh, this would actually be a static billboard. I believe the petitioner applied for digital, but because the other one is closer than 1,000 feet, the digital wasn't permitted for the state license.
Okay, thank you. I think there are some references in the ordinance to digital. So, thank you.
Very good. Further questions or comments? Okay, very good. We'll invite you gentlemen back this evening at 7 o'clock, whereas we'll conduct another public hearing and the committee will make a recommendation to all of council this evening. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both for coming this afternoon. Thank you. Our next public hearing is a conditional use to construct a fueling station and convenience store at the northwest corner of East Waterloo and Hillbush Avenue. Mr. Antonucci?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Sheets Inc. is proposing to construct a fueling station and convenience store at this location. The proposed 6,607 square foot single-story structure would be situated toward the west side of the property, well behind the required setbacks on this large lot. Exterior construction materials would consist of a brick veneer over a cast stone base. A standing seam metal roof would cap the prominent corner entrance, and complementary metal awnings would top the windows on the front sides, south and east of the building. A small outdoor seating area would be situated south of the building. A sloped canopy would cover 6 fuel pump islands east of the store structure. Parking for 39 vehicles is provided to the north, east, and south of the store. Ingress and egress drives would be located toward the north and west side of the site, away from the signalized intersection. The total signage area would meet code requirements. Goals of the land use development guide plan include guiding the location of new retail development so that it will be convenient to residents served and will have minimal impact on adjacent properties, along with promoting good design standards for buildings, signage, and parking areas. Over the past 20 years, this stretch of East Waterloo Road has slowly developed with retail uses, including other gas stations, fast food restaurants, and a car wash. The attractive building would not be out of character with these recent developments. The proposed layout meets all the development requirements of the zoning code. The proposed use as a combined fueling station and convenience store at this busy intersection will be of benefit to the area residents as well as the motoring public. Both Planning Commission and planning staff recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Antonucci. At this time, I'm going to ask a representative of our law department to swear in those individuals that wish to speak before the committee today.
Would those wishing to testify during this public hearing, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? If so, please answer, I do.
I do.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Edvett. We'll open up the public hearing portion and ask if there's someone here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use. I believe, Ryan, are you here for that, Mr. Balco? Is that right?
Yes, and my land use attorney, Bruce Rinker, is on as well. So
oh, okay. Very good.
He'll open up and then I'll add some info.
Good morning, and I'll be brief. Manser Gavin is Land Use Counsel to Sheets, and Ryan really will do the presentation showing you the site plan and elevations and going through the details. And the summary that Mr. Antonucci gave was right on. Overall, Sheets is investing a little over $5 million in the site improvements. It's a 2.5 acre site. As noted, it's vacant property, but there'll be plenty of spacing to the closest residential area to the north by quite a bit. In all, there'll be 36 employees. It anticipates hiring. It's about half and half between full-time and part-time. Ryan's pulling up the site plan. You can see it's on the northwest quadrant of the intersection with East Waterloo and Hillbish. And as Mr. Antonucci pointed out, there's a lot of attention to put the two curb cuts as far away from the signalized intersection as possible. The northern ingress egress of Hillbish is full service. And then you can see that there have been some modifications. There's a pork chop to control the access, no left turn out of the site on East Waterloo, but you can see access coming in there. There'll be 6 fuel pumps, a single wing canopy. As Ryan shows you some of the elevations, these are representative of the materials, the architecture, the overall site geometry. There's one in particular that shows a good perspective as you're coming south on Hillbish. We'll get to that momentarily. But overall, we think that the overall development really is consistent with the district and the conditional uses. This is a very sustainable, fully functioning site, and I know Sheets is looking forward to the development. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ryan.
Thank you. Ryan?
Thanks, Bruce. I won't dive into all the details here, as Mike, I think, gave a good description of the site in his staff report. But generally the building located here with parking on 3 sides of the building, fuel island canopy facing Hillbish Avenue. We do have a drive-through that we're proposing at this site that'll be on the north side of the site here, and then parking on the south. And then, as Bruce mentioned, the traffic study that we submitted to the city that's currently being reviewed now does call for full access curb cut on Hillbish Avenue, and then the 3/4 access on Waterloo, as well as a westbound decel lane. And then I just wanted to show some of the perspectives of the building, and then happy to answer any questions afterwards. But this close up of the building, this essentially would be the facade that is facing Hillbish Avenue off to the right here. And then this facade would be facing Waterloo Road. And you can see the outdoor eating space that Mike mentioned in his letter. This rendering shows the pay and pickup windows for the drive-through. So this would be kind of facing west. And again, you can see that this facade that's facing Waterloo Road. This is kind of a close-up perspective of the building as you're traveling south on Hillbish Avenue. We do have a secondary customer entrance for people to enter and exit the facility. We do have the outdoor items such as propane and ice offering. So those will kind of be, shooting away from Waterloo Road. This more zoomed out version. So this would essentially be the perspective that you're looking at the site if you were looking from the intersection of Waterloo and Hillbish. If anybody's familiar with the other sheet stores in the area, we do have a new generation fuel island canopy that you can kind of see in this perspective, with the truss roof. It's a little bit more fitting in with the architecture of the building as well. And that's something that Sheets as a company is moving forward with on all their new sites. And this is the perspective that Bruce mentioned, as you're traveling south on Hillbish Avenue. So you can kind of see the building, fuel on a canopy, and then the drive-through lane as well. Let's So that's really all I wanted to touch on. Again, happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you.
If I may, this is Bruce again. One thing that I meant to point out, the drive-through order point, which is on the north side of the site, Sheetz has touchpads for both inside the store and then also at the order point. So the whole idea is that you don't need any speaker system to make your order for anything inside the store. There's a button if you need help, but other than that, it's the touchpad, and so it's quiet.
Thank you. Any other comments? Anyone else speaking in favor? Anyone in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone wishing to speak against the conditional use request on Waterloo and Hillbush? No one? Very good. We'll close the public hearing portion and open it up to questions from the committee. Is there any questions from any committee members at this time? Any questions? Okay, I have one quick question. How many trees are on the site, and how many are going to be taken down, and how many are going to be planted?
I don't have I wouldn't be able to answer an exact count. I can show you that I think it's in this. I don't know if this is going to be clear enough.
Yeah, I don't think there is any, to be honest with you, but it's been a while.
So there's a pretty heavy buffer behind the residential properties that exist, but as it gets closer to the intersection, it definitely spreads out a little bit. But you can kind of see, you can't even see the residential properties
right
on this page. So a majority of this is going to remain in place. And then along with that, we are meeting all of the city of Akron landscape standards as far as the screening for the parking.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not, because the existing site is so heavily landscaped there, we're not necessarily proposing any new trees.
Yeah, we'd like to see some, if you can, here in the city of Akron. We've committed to planting more than we've had in the past, and so we'd like to see that. I see Mr. McKittrick's hand is up.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. This question is for Mr. Antonucci. I was contacted by one of the businesses on Waterloo Road references. I know there were notices sent out. Were there notices to any of the residences on Springfield Lake Boulevard? And if so, did anybody contact in regard to this?
There were notices did go out. I believe I did get a call. A gentleman was just asking for more information on it, but no opposition at Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McKittrick. Any further questions or comments from anyone? Questions or comments? Very good. Hearing none, we'll of course invite you back this evening at 7 o'clock. And of course, we will then the committee will make a recommendation to all of council. Thank you for attending. Thank you. Thank you. We'll move on to the balance of the agenda at this point. And is Mr. Neal online? I see. It looks like Mr. Neal's online, possibly. I know he had a question in reference to the next item, which is item number 3, which is the zoning code changes that has been requested by the planning department in terms of the grammatical errors and removing some ambiguity. So I don't know if everyone's had a chance. I know Mr. Neal had some questions. Wanted to make sure with him he's okay with us moving forward. So, Mr. Neal, I see your hands up.
Okay. Yes, excuse me for not being on screen, Mr. Chair, but yeah, thank you. I did have a chance to talk to Mr. Antonucci, and he explained, answered my questions and explained. I think it's important as we go through, because this relates to other things that we do clarify as we're doing with this in our zoning code, what we mean when we use certain words, because things change over time. So I appreciate the time taken, and I appreciate Mr. Antonucci, explaining that to me. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Any further questions or comments reference to item number 3? This is a zoning code kind of cleanup of language and such. Questions or comments? There's nothing of substance, I guess, but just any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Is there a recommendation for approval?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? There's
Second.
a second. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Against? You guys have it. Very good. We'll take time on the balance of the agenda and move into our very new list of legislation. Okay, the first item is the ordinance authorizing the purchase of 95 and 97 Linwood Avenue and 2066 Hackberry Street pursuant to the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. Anyone here reference this?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. This is our FEMA mitigation grant. I brought a piece to you, another house 2 weeks ago. These are 2 more properties. The one is right next door. It's another duplex. No one was living in the one side, and the other side, the owner is relocating that renter to another property, I believe here in Akron. And then the other property, the people do not have a place just yet, but they want to move on this so they can look for another place to move into. This will not, by the time we go through your approval, they will not be moving probably till early next year. So both houses, 75,000 is appraised value. We've got an agreement from both property owners to get them out of this area where there's been chronic flooding. So with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you, sir. Questions or comments from any committee members and or council members? Any questions or comments? Is consent agenda okay or?
Yes, sir, that's fine.
Okay, great. I assume Mr. Kamer is in favor of this. Good, okay. I'd like to request a motion for the consent agenda.
Motion for consent.
Is there a second out there?
She second, Sharon second.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. All those in favor of consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The ayes have it. Okay, 4 is ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a lease agreement with Congresswoman Chantel Brown, United States House of Representatives, 11th District of Ohio, for offices at the Lawton Street Community Center in the city of Akron. Somebody here on this?
Yes, I'm here. I'm Katie Breck from the Office of Integrated Development. Hello, Chairman Fusco, members of the committee. This is basically the same lease that we signed with Congresswoman Marcia Fudge. We have a new representative in Akron who would like to maintain the Lawton Community Center office space of her predecessor. So this would be a new lease that we would be signing for a period of 2 years. I believe the office space is valued at $350 a month. So this would be a lease, basically the same as before that we bring before you today.
Okay, very good. Is there questions or comments? And this, Spreck, you had mentioned this is for the same amount, dollar amount?
Correct.
Okay. Is consent agenda okay on this?
I think consent would be fine.
Is that cool? All right.
That's good.
Questions or comments from anyone? Okay. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
Motion for consent.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, very good. Consent agenda it is on that item right there. That concludes our planning committee meeting of Akron City Council. We have scheduled, not doing too bad. We have scheduled some time for OID to come in and have a discussion in reference to ARPA funds, in reference to the economic development piece, small businesses, etc. I know Mr. Volman's here and et al. And so turn it over to Mr. Volman, and he can introduce everyone here on the team. I think we know everyone, but I'll let him conduct that piece of business. We'll open up, we'll hear from OID first, and then afterwards, open up for questions. Okay, Mr. Volman?
Yes, certainly. And I'm going to almost immediately turn it over to Katie Brack. However, Katie is here, our Director of Integrated Development, as well as Heather Roschek and Janelle Penna from Guidehouse is going to be taking us through this presentation. And then when we're done hearing from Guidehouse, we're going to talk about a couple of the programs that we have that we would like to, try to move forward with. Katie?
Thank you, Sean. Good afternoon, Chairman Fusco, members of the committee. As Sean said, I'm Katie Brack from the Office of Integrated Development. I'm excited to kick things off, but before I introduce Janelle from Guidehouse, I wanted to set the stage for our ideas to support local economic recovery with American Rescue Plan dollars. It's no secret that the global pandemic decimated our local economy. During the height of the pandemic, 1,743 Akron businesses applied for financial assistance through the Summit County COVID Small Business Emergency Relief Grant Program. Nationally, 73% of families have had income reduction and 41% of Black-owned businesses have closed. We know that our small businesses are the heart of our local economy because they do so much more than provide jobs for our people. They help create a sense of place and community. When these funds were announced, our downtown office center was seemingly empty as many employees continued to work from home, which has caused many of our downtown businesses to close or shift their business hours as a result. At the same time, new residents coming into downtown were looking for more businesses to patronize, presenting an opportunity to invest in small businesses and create the vibrant neighborhood we aspire to be downtown. We see the American Rescue Plan as an opportunity to creatively invest into our small businesses and entrepreneurs because small business ownership helps our local economy recover, stabilize, and generate wealth over time. We also recognize that businesses owned by people of color, women, and immigrants have additional barriers to access the resources they need to be successful. Today, we will walk you through our ideas to support small businesses in downtown and launch a business mentorship program specifically for Black entrepreneurs. I would like to introduce Janelle at this time from Guidehouse to walk us through how the American Rescue Plan dollars can be invested in local economic recovery. Janelle, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janelle Pena. I'm a part of the Guidehouse team working with the city of Akron. As Katie just said, we're going to be reviewing the local economic recovery portion of the American Rescue Plan Act. There we go. Okay. We know that the COVID-19 public health emergency severely impacted many businesses across the country, but that small businesses were hit particularly hard. Across the nation, some 400,000 businesses closed down due to the COVID-19 public health emergency. And as Katie just stated, there was also a significant impact in the city of Akron, with businesses, over 1,700 businesses applying for financial assistance from the Small Business Relief Grant, and 11 retail businesses having to close their downtown locations. We know that the negative outlook for small businesses, they still tend to face some pressure toward closure, and we know that investing in local economic recovery is going to be a key portion of the overall local economic recovery. State and local fiscal recovery funds can be used to support the negative impacts of COVID-19, but specifically in three specific ways. First would be to provide loans or grants to mitigate financial hardship. Second would be loans or grants to assist businesses with implementing COVID-19 prevention tactics and strategies. And the third would be for entities to create programs that would support businesses with business planning needs, growth, and mentorship programs. And I know that you all have, we've mentioned this each time we've given a presentation, but it still is important to note the scope of these projects. The U.S. Treasury recommends that every city places their project ideas into what's called expenditure categories. And expenditure categories determine the scope of a project and some additional requirements. And for these, the expenditure category would be negative economic impacts. That's where the scope of the project falls in. And then further, small business economic assistance. So that would be the scope of these projects, and that would be the goal. To add some additional information, to support the economic recovery, while also supporting strong equitable growth of the economic recovery, we've listed here categories of applicants that may be prioritized as they apply for this funding. So an applicant doesn't have to meet every single one of these criteria, but applicants that do meet these criteria would be prioritized if they would choose to apply and are eligible for this funding.
Thank you.
So go ahead. Okay. So firstly, the businesses that are located in the downtown Akron area that offer services that were particularly negatively impacted by COVID-19. So of course, those retail, hospitality, businesses, et cetera, in the downtown area. Secondly, it would be businesses that perhaps had not received prior funding from other relief programs. Not that this would preclude you from applying for additional funding, but it would be important to prioritize businesses that had not had a chance to receive funding at all, of course, to ensure that as many businesses as possible receive some type of support. Then it would be those entrepreneurs that are historically economically disadvantaged, so minority-owned businesses, businesses owned by women, businesses owned by veterans, and businesses owned by persons who have different abilities. A business located in a qualified census tract would fall under this prioritization. Businesses that, of course, employ the residents of Akron, and businesses that have full-time employees. Now I'll pass it over to Mr. Sean Volman to review one of the first program ideas.
Yes, hi, everyone. I think that we have a really great idea, and I love to take credit for really great ideas. However, this one was conceived by Katie Brack and my predecessor, Mr. James Hardy. This has been mentioned a number of times already in this meeting and all the meetings that we've had on this. COVID has hit everyone hard, and there hasn't been an unscathed person or a business, in the world probably. But one of the intangible victims is really our downtown retail and storefront areas. Residential is booming in downtown Akron right now. However, the slower than expected return in-person working for many of our downtown employers has slowed down the opening and reopening of downtown storefronts. Out of this reality sprung what was originally termed the Main Street Draft. The idea was that each new business that would sign a multi-year lease downtown would get a signing bonus, similar to athletes being drafted when they go professional. This would be to assist them with opening the new business. The bonus would have been tied to the square footage of the leased area. Unfortunately, it does not appear that the current regulations, at least, we'll see what happens when the final regulations come out, will allow for this program to go forward as initially conceived. We are, however, committed to implementing this concept as true as possible to the original plan. We will need to see what the final guidelines allow and structure it accordingly. but ultimately we will succeed in assisting this need downtown. And also, I don't have a slide for the second item that I wanted to talk about, kind of a related item, but I would go into it now because I think it fits in with the original downtown draft idea, but it is not certainly existing businesses, and not necessarily existing businesses downtown, but all over the city. And small businesses have continued to struggle. We want to set up a grant program that would assist small businesses in the affected industries. If you go back to one of the previous slides, you see that that hospitality is considered one of the bigger affected industries. There are other industries as well that would be looking like retail to help. And we just want to set up basically a grant program for those that qualify and meet the need. The targeted ones, the ones we would focus on, are from this project demographic distribution that you see, but small businesses all over the city would be eligible. And we think that, again, based on current guidelines, and I think being a lawyer, I always have to couch it in that. But we would be able to set up programs one of two ways. One would be in trying to take care of and assist with revenue loss over the period of time that the ARPA guidelines allow. The other one would be based on operating expenses. And we're looking at two different ways to set this up. Both programs, again, assuming that we have final guidance relatively soon, we would expect to open up both programs the first quarter of 2022. Would take applications from the companies that would fit under these regulations, and potentially from landlords or other businesses that would be interested in opening up downtown. And once we are able and ready to launch this program, we will need each and every one of you to help us get the word out, and certain help programs are here, and hopefully this can assist in truly important ways with our local economy. And I think now, did we want to move to the business mentorship program? Now, Heather, is that going to be you or Katie?
I will take that, Sean.
Okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Fusco, members of the committee. I think I know most of you, but for those who don't know me, my name is Heather Roschek, and I work there in OID. Team members from the city of Akron, as well as a number of our partner organizations, have heard consistent requests from business owners in Akron, particularly newer business owners, asking for a mentorship program that is focused on Black entrepreneurs. Our entrepreneurship ecosystem has a number of successful programs for business coaching, but the role of a mentor is different. So a mentor is a seasoned and successful business owner who can provide both strategic and emotional support to a new business owner from the unique perspective of someone who has truly walked in their shoes. The mentorship provided through this program would be by Black entrepreneurs for Black entrepreneurs, and would work as a complement to a number of other programs like Mortar and Rubber City Match that are already seeing success here. This program would be created and executed in partnership between Bounce and the Akron Urban League, and would be funded with support from the Burton D. Morgan Foundation, the Fund for Our Economic Future, and hopefully with your support, the City of Akron.
All right, that concludes our presentation, and we'd be happy to take any questions for.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you all. Thank you all for that presentation. Have a couple. I know that this is just the beginning, and that we're. I like all the ideas that have been discussed here and brought up. I have a couple myself, especially in terms of the downtown piece. And I like the idea of the mentorship and kind of like not reinventing the wheel, if you will, but just trying to double down, I guess, on our success, which is very good. I like that. One of the things, and this may be more of a infrastructure piece, but it seems to me, to be honest with you, with what we're doing downtown with the new Main Street, trying to attract the residential and the retail and the office and having that mix use, if you will. To be honest with you, I think we should just take 5G straight down Main Street and open that up to, I think small businesses would be attracted by that. It would help on our residential piece. And I think that's something that we really should be given, should be given some thought. Again, that might be more of an infrastructure discussion versus this, but it seems to me that would be a good one to have. I don't know if you guys have thought about that or not. That's one idea. Another one is the cameras and such in terms of our downtown. I know that we've had some challenges of late in terms of downtown. It seems like, and I know we're already looking at that for different neighborhoods, but it seems as though that would be helpful, I think, in terms of our downtown. And also I like the idea of the matching funds to help folks out. And the one, and I don't know what this is, but just kind of like open a discussion on this. Is there a way we could figure out how to help? It seems like the small businesses, the hospitality was mentioned, and everyone else, they're struggling with keeping people. I don't know how we fix that, or if we can fix that, or ARPA would qualify for that even, but it seems as though this is somewhat of an outcome of COVID. And how do we help businesses keep those folks? I don't know, if you try to help small businesses out with a health program or something to keep people, employed and keep people interested in their jobs. But it just seems as though that's another thing that maybe we should explore or look at. Plus, I have probably about 3 or 4 other ones, but I see a lot of my good colleagues have their hands like right more like here. So,
Councilman, we are diligently taking notes as well, because we're looking for whatever ideas can help. And obviously, there's with each one, there's making sure it's qualified under the program. Yeah. But I'm open to any and all ideas.
Yeah, and we realize, I think this is just the beginning of a journey. So appreciate the presentations again. And I'm gonna I don't know who was first, but I'm gonna, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in order of ward, if that makes sense. So Nancy Holland, I see your Ward 1, and then I'll go to Mr. Lombardo, and then Mosley, and then Shamus.
Thank you, Chairman Fusco, and thank you to the presenters. I have a variety of kind of unconnected questions, but I'll try and keep them short. As far as the relief to downtown, trying to sort of piece together the original qualifying criteria and then the proposed plan, I first want to make sure I understand, does downtown Main Street actually fall within a qualified census tract? That's my first question.
I do not know the answer to that question. We can certainly, I don't see Helen or on here, but we can look that up and find that out. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
Okay. I guess, to a larger.
Sorry, I just want to chime in really quickly. This is Gabby. I'll put my camera on.
Hi, Gabby.
For assistance, hi. So for assistance to small businesses, they don't necessarily need to fall into a qualified census tract. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, that was one of the priorities, was that we were looking at that one sheet with the different 6 line items were more about prioritization, I think, versus limitations. But you had to meet, if you met one of them, then you would be looking like a priority for this kind of program.
Okay, because if I'm not mistaken, heading west on Market Street, we do come into a couple of different qualified census tract areas.
Probably.
I guess it would be helpful to know exactly what we're looking at using that particular mapping. And to sort of tag onto that, when we're talking about downtown and relief for hospitality and retail businesses, are you currently looking exclusively at Main Street, or do we have a zone that extends east and west?
Originally, we were looking at Main Street, but we, given the construction projects that have taken place on Market Street, we're looking into other areas of downtown as well, because we noticed the impact has been great.
Sure has. And I guess to that end, Ward 1 businesses would love to know, will this extend west on Market Street from, let's just say, the intersection of Market and Main?
Well, I guess to clarify that, and I did kind of I had one slide and talked about two different program ideas. For what we were calling the draft, that was really initially geared towards new businesses, or say you wanted to open you had a location in say Ward 6 and you wanted to open one downtown. It was to assist with that initial lease and moving downtown. What I'm calling the small business grant program, which is what I'm calling it in my head, is broader than that. It would be throughout the city, and those would be more for established businesses that have had revenue losses or increased operating expenses due to COVID. So that would not be limited to downtown, Ward 1, 2, 3. I mean, that would be everybody would be eligible for that. But as I said, we had some prioritization categories that were shared earlier.
Sure. And thank you for that clarification. Understanding as I do that, at least for now, it appears that the signing bonus, if you will, and I love that you call it the draft program. Very clever.
I can't take credit.
But it's still good. So that's been paused. So this would, assuming that can be worked out, this would be a forward-looking program. This would be for folks who sign beginning at a certain point in the future. Am I getting that right? Okay.
That would be the idea, yeah.
And I don't mean to suck up all the time and oxygen here. I just have one more question. I think it's for my friend Heather. I love the business mentorship program. I think this is really how every one of us who have ever had a business actually learned how to do it. You can get an MBA, or you can actually work with somebody who has run a business. That said, my concern is for the mentors themselves. I saw a budget number on the slide associated with this program, and my concern is a very functional one. Will the mentors be paid? And what is that budget number accounting for? Because it's super important that we not only support new business folks, but that we support the people who are kind enough to share what they've learned in conducting their businesses in this community.
Yes, thank you for asking that, Nancy. I definitely want to clarify that the mentors will be paid. They absolutely will be compensated. I think that that's one of the, that's part of the beauty of the program, is that it's supporting not only the new business owners, but also the seasoned business owners by compensating them as mentors. I don't have the exact amount of what they are planning, what the rate is, but I can certainly find that out and get back to you. But we would be just one of the funders of this program. So that $30,000 is a piece. The Fund for Our Economic Future has committed to, I believe, just over $36,000. And Burton D. Morgan Foundation is also coming in with, I believe, a very generous grant for the program as well.
Nice. Thank you, Heather. That's all I've got. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Lombardo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question in regards to the ARPA funds and the small business grant I'm calling it. So I don't know, this is for Sean or Heather or Janelle or Katie here, but because Sean, you've clarified that these things, these grants, doesn't matter if it's Ward 1, 2, 3, or downtown, it would be open for everybody, correct?
Yes, I mean, there will be, I think, based on the final guidelines, I mean, there may be size of business qualifications, certain business categories. They're focusing on retail, they're focusing on hospitality. There may be other impacted industries that are delineated, but
Right.
it would not be specific to a ward.
Okay, so then my second question is, would a church qualify under the small business plan?
I mean, that is not something that we've discussed at this point. It's something we could discuss. I don't know what that would do as far as, the regulations for small businesses. It's not something that we've considered at this point.
Generally, just to add on to what Sean said, generally when we've had other small business grant programs, we focus on those businesses that are that have a specific filing with the federal government because they pay taxes. And so we depend on the federal government's however they file. So whether they are filing as like a limited liability corporation or incorporated or something like that, whereas churches often are filing as nonprofits, so that would fall under assistance really to more nonprofit grants. We have done some, Guidehouse has seen some and led some nonprofit grants across the country, but usually churches fall under that category instead of small businesses.
Okay, all right. So do we have any ARPA funds available for the nonprofit sector?
We'll have to look into that.
Okay.
I mean, it's a potential program like any other. It's something that we can look into.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mosley?
Thank you, Chairman Fusco. I think my colleagues may have already asked the question. I apologize if I'm being repetitive. Sean, I heard you mention that that the small business funds won't be for just downtown Akron, it will go across the city. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and so are they going to earmark a certain amount that will go into the neighborhoods? Because I mean, I would hate for us to think it's going to the neighborhood and we get one small business in the neighborhood being able to continue on with these funds and the rest of it going into downtown. I just want to make sure that we're taking small businesses in these neighborhoods because they're not going to move downtown just so they get funding.
And again, lack of multiple slides aside, those were two separate programs that discussed.
Okay.
I mean, the downtown program that we discussed was more for new businesses, trying to incentivize new companies for opening up. The business assistance, the plan is to have that citywide and not have a certain amount earmarked for downtown.
Okay. And my next question is, one of the slides mentioned that there will be loans available or grants available. How are you guys going to be able to differentiate what's a loan and what's a grant? Who will have to apply for a loan versus who can apply for the grant? Because I think that'll make a big difference when we start talking about businesses who are already struggling, where they maybe say, well, you can take a loan out and they may meet the criteria to get a loan. How do we make sure that those individuals who really need that help don't get stuck in a loan that they are already struggling to stay afloat with the other expenses?
I think the slide that you are talking about was one of the ones that Janelle had put forward. And I think that was more general buckets of for ARPA in general, that you are allowed to provide loans, you are allowed to provide grants. At this point, we do not plan on administering a loan program. What I have talked about today would be grants to the small businesses. Could we structure a loan program in the future? Probably, but what's discussed about today is a grant program.
Okay, if that happens to change anywhere along the course of distributing these funds, can you guys please let us know that? Because I would hate to be telling small businesses that we have available and then it turns into a loan.
And I mean, if nothing else, for us to try to administer and collect on multiple loans over a fixed, I'm not even sure how that would work with the time guidelines that ARPA has. I would not, again, I'm not going to foreclose any possible good program, but at this point, I don't see this being a loan program.
Okay.
But yes, absolutely. If we have a new program, I'm gonna shout it from the rooftops because I need people to apply for it. And at that point in time, we'll let all of you know.
Okay. And just my last question.
I think Gabby.
Gabby, you have something? Okay.
I'm just going to add to the loan bit. A lot of our clients have decided not to pursue loans. One of the reasons that Sean just alluded to, once you collect the money back from the loan, so it would have to be a short-term loan, you would then have to re-spend it according to the eligibility requirements. So it doesn't just come back into Akron's general fund. It is still considered a state and local fiscal recovery dollars, meaning that you guys would still have to expend it by it would have to be expended by 2025.
Or give it back.
Thank you, or give it back. And my last question is on this business mentorship program. What is the $30,000? I probably missed it. Being earmarked for? Is that to hire someone?
I don't believe that it is being earmarked for anything specific. Bounce and the Urban League worked together to lay out a program proposal, and they required a total dollar amount, and so the 30,000 is going in to go towards that program. I don't believe that it has been earmarked for anything specific at this time.
I don't know. I just think I feel like there should be a little more clarity on that. It seemed a little different.
So, if I may, I'm looking at all of it's not a budget for the program, but we are coming in at $30,000, and the total amount raised thus far is over $100,000. And this would allow for Bounce to serve about 18 to 24 clients over a 2-year period. But if you wanted more specific numbers on how those dollars were to be spent, we can surely reach out to Jessica and provide you with that information.
Okay, if you could, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Malik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to everyone who's presenting. We appreciate the amount of hard work and time that's clearly gone into these programs. Particularly want to thank you, Ms. Raschek, the business mentorship program. I think that I appreciate the explicit, race conscious focus on Black entrepreneurs and Black-owned small businesses. When we know how hard the pandemic has hit our Black-owned small businesses. A couple of questions. First, Mr. Volman, for when we talk about the downtown business grant program and then this kind of more general citywide grant program, do we have rough numbers for the amounts that we would like to divide between those two, or is it still kind of up in the air?
I think it's up in the air. Initially, I was looking at 5 million between the two, with the majority, I think we had about 80% of that going to the small grants in general, and $1 million allocated towards the downtown draft. I'm going to continue to call it that even. however we restructure it. But that was initially what I had allocated in my mind.
Okay, and that is
And
a pretty, go ahead.
Yeah, and a lot of it would depend on need. I mean,
Sure.
if we need to see what people are applying for. When we do open up the programs, I think some of it's going to be need driven.
Absolutely, and to Councilwoman Mosley's point, 4 million roughly, and again, I'm not holding you to that number, 4 million roughly for, citywide, that is a pretty substantial investment in the citywide businesses. For downtown, I know that when we're talking about drafting, businesses, and we're talking about the kinds of businesses that we need down there, retail businesses, one of the focuses obviously of OID and everyone has been some kind of, place where people can get groceries. Is that something that maybe can be, a target of this program?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Enthusiastically, yes.
Unfortunately, I can't commit the entire amount to that, but no, I mean, absolutely, that would be something that would be eligible for this program.
I look forward to buying milk on Main Street sometime soon. And then the last, I think, is just a comment. I know that one of the goals of this Main Street draft is to, increase new and, existing jobs. And so I would encourage that we either consider a requirement or a priority that the businesses that are getting the funds, pay a $15 minimum wage.
Okay.
I'm for that.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Malik. Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the presentation. Just wanted to say a few things. One, Mr. Chair, you mentioned 5G. We talked about understanding, that technology and infrastructure. I suggest we take a look at the city's 5G plan, because surprisingly, there are some communities where it encourages us not to put 5G, and downtown is one of them, along with the Highland Square community. Why those were highlighted, we're not having 5G, I'm not sure. It also says we shouldn't have it around our schools and our parks. But it would be good for us to look at the map that exists right now of where 5G is in our city, because you bring up a good point. But that being said, also, we need to take a look at keep a close eye on how we expense these ARPA funds, because remember, we've got ARPA dollars, we've got infrastructure dollars, we've got Build Back Better dollars, then we have our regular budget and CDBG funds that come in that. We need to make sure that we're not spending ARPA dollars for something that's going to be covered by infrastructure. And broadband is a huge part of that infrastructure. So this goes back to us really having a plan that we all understand, and to the point where our citizens are crying out to be a part of this process. We've got the regular city's budget, infrastructure, and Build Back Better. ARPA dollars could be used as much as possible to address the intimate needs of housing, poverty, homelessness, and the infrastructure within our community. I appreciate these plans, but it's mind-blowing all the money that's coming, and we cannot look at these things independently. I know I keep saying this. I'd like for us to have a session with council and Guidehouse, specifically talking about the equitable metrics that we use to keep track of all this. And then look at the different buckets and see how they overlap. Because what we don't want to do is use ARPA funds for something where we could use the infrastructure dollars. And this is new territory for all of us. So it's just saying, hey, let's put, in the words of Mr. Joseph Coleman, none of us are as smart as all of us. So let's put our heads together and not keep anyone blocked from this process, so that we can make good use of this time that we have. So I just want to share that, because there's just so much that's coming down the pipe. And what I'd hate for us to do is to use, first we got to look at how we're using our regular dollars, because that could go further. And let me share this too, because I talked to Mr. Fricker. We put $700,000 into pay them delinquent water bill. Guess who that money's coming back to? It's coming back to the city. Every year, we used to write off close to $800 to $1.2, $1.5 million in delinquent water bill. So let's look at how all that money's coming back as well. And to Mr. Fricker's point, we also have to think about, the changing tax codes and how that may impact us as a city. So it's not like we're going to have all this money sitting at one time. But folks, I don't want to sound like a broken drum, but we cannot, I'm going to use this example. If any of you have remodeled a house, you don't start building a house and then halfway through say, oh, you know what? I want a bathroom over here. It just doesn't work that way. It's so much more expensive to put that bathroom in there. So before we start expending all these funds, let's look at how ARPA, infrastructure, Build Back Better, our regular budgetary dollars, as well as the cash flow that we have now with some of this money that's coming back, work so that we can make the best use of this. I appreciate this, but it's just mind blowing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Ms. Mobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to sound like a broken record. One of the things that I'm continuing to be troubled by is that we keep throwing out criteria that we plan to use to disperse these dollars. And then I keep hearing about organizations that have already been promised dollars. So my concern is, are we going to establish criteria based on what we've already done? Or are we going to establish criteria to help us figure out how we plan to disperse this money? We keep throwing out the word metrics, qualified census tracts and all of that. Is somebody going to tell us sometime soon, what are we going to use to determine how we are going to disperse these dollars? Because I mean, time is getting away from us, and I realize we have a lot of money still coming, and we have a lot of time to do this. But it'd be nice to hear more specifics, because we keep hearing all of these different metrics and criteria that are being considered, but no one can tell me exactly what we're going to be doing. But yet, there are people that have already been promised dollars and a certain amount. And I hate to see that we are trying to establish metrics or criteria based on what we've already decided to do. Can somebody answer that, please?
I can speak for these two programs that no one's been promised any specific amount to my knowledge.
So let me ask you this. In the Beacon Journal for the last few weeks now, they've been featuring and advertising a lot of Black businesses. And I don't know what we are doing in terms of establishing some type of directory of Black businesses. Are we just waiting for people to apply, or we have some way? I know Shana has been doing some different kinds of programming with Black businesses, and I've been fortunate enough to sit in on some of those with this accounting company. But how are we getting this word out, and how are we getting the message out to them? Because there are quite a few Black businesses that I didn't even know existed in Akron, and they're being featured in the Beacon Journal weekly. And so what plan do we have?
Sorry, go ahead, Katie.
I was just going to say, we just wrapped up the pilot process for the Bloomberg Mayor's Challenge, which focused specifically on Black-owned businesses. We're waiting to hear the beginning of this coming year in January, whether or not we were successful in our program, but it would create a, much like Heather brought to us, a mentorship program. There's a one-on-one advisor that would be assigned to any entrepreneur looking to launch their business. So we're really excited about the possibility of winning this funding to move this project forward. To your point about a directory, I'm not sure who would be capturing the information. I know that there may have been some work done on this by the chamber, but I don't believe that an official directory exists. And I think too, it would be one that would be ever changing because businesses are launching all the time. Heather, do you happen to know whether there's any progress made on a directory?
So I know that, Katie, as you said, the chamber has put some work into this with Robert DiGiornet, I believe, kind of spearheading those efforts. I think one of the things that's particularly tricky is that a lot of businesses are home-based and, somewhat invisible, very difficult to find other than through word of mouth. For that reason, we really rely on partners like Bounce and like the Urban League, and frankly, like all of you who have deep connections within the community to help get the word out and also help get feedback back to us. I know that Bounce has, for example, a street team composed, Ace Epps leads it up for them. And whenever they're trying to get word out about program or solicit applications for mortar, they take flyers and actually go out and walk the streets in the neighborhoods and stop by door trying to get the word out. So my belief is that I don't think that we have one funnel that brings everybody in or one specific way to communicate with the community. We have to rely on a number of methods.
Okay.
Do we have any kind of timeline as to when we plan to have this metric or whatever we're using to decide on the funding of these programs? I don't know if Gabby is still on the call or not. I know she's talked a lot about it.
I'm still on the call. So I think we are at a place right now where we have developed the community violence prevention program. And that's one of the things I think, Councilwoman Amobian, what you were mentioning is we've mentioned a lot of different metrics. And I'll say that we are kind of thinking, the city is trying to take a really thoughtful approach of, different programs need to have different metrics, not just because of the federal requirements, but also because of the things that you guys have best understanding for your community, and knowing, community violence prevention is going to need to take into consideration particular items. Councilwoman Amobian, when it comes to the small businesses, I think that these items that you're bringing up, thinking about how we're going to market it, thinking about the chambers of commerce or reaching out. One thing that we saw another county do is they had actually set up kind of weekly meetings. Their economic development had set up weekly meetings where they had already created this base and audience, kind of updates on different things surrounding the pandemic. And then they were able to leverage that. So there's a lot of different approaches about how we can best kind of take on getting the word out. I think the other part, as far as a timeline, I think we want to try to line up the funds with knowing, hey, they're available, they're ready to be spent, and we can give businesses a very specific time of when we can cut a check for them. Part of that will be making sure that the city's infrastructure, as far as how we're actually going to disperse the money, is where it needs to be. Part of it is making sure that council is on board with approving how many dollars we want to associate with this particular program. So I think the timeline right now is a little bit up in the air, but these are items that we are thinking about. We just need to get a little bit better idea of how long everything is going to take as far as the processes that the city has. But I think, Sean, I don't know if you have an idea or even a goal, or if city council has a goal to say, hey, what we're hearing from our community is these funds need to be out by the first quarter in 2022. I think that that's a really good discussion for us to have.
And that was the date that I had said. I mean, again, part of it is I was under the impression, a bit ago, that we were going to have the final guidance by October 1st. So I don't want, to me, I don't want to spend, and then find out we have to ask for it back. That's not a program that I wanted. That's not something I want to do to our small businesses if we end up funding something and determining it's not eligible. So I think that's a big part of it. And then, each one, assuming that the grants are end up being based on a revenue loss structure. I mean, we need to have the internal people to review those numbers and look at it and look at past revenue and current revenue and determine what the loss is and figure that all out. So, I mean, I wish we could just kick this off today, but it's going to take a bit of time to structure this so we do it right. Again, first quarter of 22, I'm really hoping. First quarter of 22, we can be taking applications and cutting checks.
Just one other question. Why are we asking businesses, nonprofits, or what have you, for a DUNS number?
That's really, I mean, maybe Gabby can help, but that's really a Helen Toma question for me. And I mean, it's a requirement of receiving federal funds, I believe. Oh, Melinda, hello.
I am here.
Excuse me, when you're applying for a grant, you need a DUNS number. We are asking people to apply to the city for money that the federal government has already allocated to us. So why do they need a DUNS number?
That'd be a subrecipient of some sort. I'm assuming
That's exactly it. So the DUNS number is essentially a federal number that recognizes an entity that is doing business with the federal government. So even if the city is the actual grantee, if we are giving out grants utilizing those allocated dollars, they are a sub-grantee, meaning that they also essentially indirectly are doing business with the federal government, which is why that DUNS number is required.
Yeah,
so the
DUNS
city
number,
is acting. Oh, go ahead.
As a pass-through entity.
Yes.
I was just saying it's a pass-through entity in this case. The federal government cares where the final dollar kind of ends up in this respect. And the end of the transaction really would be saying that you guys are setting up a grant program and the final recipient is that small business grant, that small business receiving the grant.
So this is what you're doing all over the country with cities?
Yeah.
Everybody
It is
that
a
gets
federal
money
requirement
has to have a DUNS number.
Any entity accepting federal grant funds, correct?
So are we telling people how to go about doing this? Because we don't want to just put roadblocks in folks' ways.
No, for sure. This is definitely something, technical assistance would be a technical assistance aspect of it. So part of any grant, just like what we're doing with the community violence, we're going to have, examples and videos of the community violence program of how to fill out the actual grant. We're recording that video. We're also working with Tamika Rose to identify possibly a nonprofit that can provide some mentorship to help translate if there are people who are running into issues. We Guidehouse ourselves, we're making sure that we are available for people to reach out to directly if they have questions. But yes, that would be definitely something, once this program got launched, we would take a video, we would do a frequently asked question of how do you get a DUNS number? And it's not a difficult process. It's a simple website visit. You fill out an application and they are pretty quick to give you the number. But you're right. It's not something that most small businesses have. The reason being they don't do business with the federal government, but because of this particular situation where they are receiving federal dollars, even though they are from the city, it sets them up to kind of be, basically they have to follow this requirement.
Very good, thank you. Okay, Ms. Mobian.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
We'll go ahead and move on to the second round. Ask that everyone try to be a little bit brief as we are bumping up against time here. We have other committees that are going to be occurring. Obviously, everyone here would be available via email, etc. But this is a very good conversation. So let's see here. I guess Ms. Holland. I don't even know who was first. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is for Guidehouse. I raised the very concerns that Councilman Neal mentioned about coordinating funding sources at the committee and council meeting last week. In other words, 10 days ago, we had the passage of the infrastructure bill. We're all very hopeful that we'll get the Build Back Better passage in not too very long.
And these represent enormous potential sources of additional funding. So my question, I think, is maybe for Gabby, maybe for Guidehouse. Is there somebody or a bunch of somebodies who are monitoring this legislation and now, the staffing up on the federal end and the programming? And is this part of Guidehouse's current or anticipated near future scope of work so that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot in terms of duplicating funding or spending ARPA dollars that are really better sourced from infrastructure or the human infrastructure Build Back Better dollars? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And I wanted to address it when Councilman Neal brought it up as well. So currently, we actually do have a group of people through our Center of Excellence at Guidehouse that's focused on the pandemic, going through the Build Back Better bill. Janelle and Sharon, who you also have gotten a chance to meet, they are going through and doing research to understand and pull apart that bill. As you guys know, even though a bill has been passed, oftentimes the guidance on that bill and the information is not provided until later on. One of the main questions that we kind of have right now, or one of the things that is kind of most up in the air, is how are the dollars going to be dispersed? Are they going to be dispersed to cities through programs that they have to apply for? Is it going to be dispersed to the state and then the state is going to decide? So that's one of the major questions, along, of course, with all of the eligibility requirements that they're going to lay out for each one of the categories. But it is something we're closely monitoring. I think that we intend on providing some sort of update to the administration as far as what we know so far this coming Friday. But that is something, and I believe that Dr. Joan is also going to be on that meeting as well. So we can make sure that that is available to City Council and dispersed, but with the disclaimer that it's only what we know so far and that things are very likely to change as kind of additional information and guidance comes out around that bill.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple quick things I wanted to point out. One, with this money, we want to make sure it's an investment so that we're building sustainable action. And one of the things we found out when we give scholarships away for students is that a lot of students don't apply for grants that are already available out there. Same way in the business world. We need to put in infrastructure. We need to duplicate Ms. Samso. We need dedicated grant writers for every one of our wards to deal with housing, small businesses, because there's a ton of money in SBA waiting for people to acquire it, but they don't have the technical assistance. They're busy running their businesses. So that's one. Looking at creating tech support to go after grant dollars that are going to be there after ARPA funds so that we can make whatever we do sustainable by knowing how to access those dollars. The other thing is, in regards to this equity discussion, we've had this discussion on council before. We need Guidehouse to bring us what they're using, the city, but council needs to understand on its own. And I say we don't need to wait. There are tools out there that we can get understanding, working with our own chamber, working with NLC, who has race equity and leadership training that they provide, and using the Greater Alliance of Race Equity, which the administration used, so that we can get up to speed and make sure that the policy that we do and how we administer the city's regular budget and other dollars is equitable. So I just wanted to encourage us, because we're going to be in 2022 before you know it, that we set time and place for us to give ourselves time to have that kind of conversation and educational training. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Okay, very good. I believe everyone's received their answers to their questions. As mentioned earlier, when I mentioned the 5G, the broadband, we need to compete I believe, and I believe I had mentioned too, that was, it may need to come out of that infrastructure piece as well. Maybe not this piece, but I think we need to keep that in front of our mind whenever we think about downtown, and whenever we even think about some of these other business districts and such, and making sure it, eventually goes out obviously to the whole city. But if we're gonna bring the residential downtown as well as the commercial retail, that'd be helpful. The last, okay, Mr. Malik, I see your hands up.
And just very briefly, to your point about fiber and broadband, we talked about it a lot. And I was thinking, I don't know who's the best person to direct this to, so I'll direct it to Mr. Volman. Is there a map that's available that has, the fiber and broadband across the city? So we have some idea, because we talk about it in the abstract a lot.
I do believe so. Let me look into that and look into it. But quite honestly, I want to poke fun at myself a little bit. I thought Councilman Fusco was talking about giving $5,000 each business down Main Street when he said 5G. So, I got to get a little more up to speed on some of my technology terms.
We can do both, but thank you if that map's made available.
But yeah, no, I believe that is an existing map that we can either get you the link to or provide.
Very good. And I hope everyone's done. Thank you all for your patience and your questions and interest in this. This is just the beginning. I think we've said that before. And this exchange is very healthy, especially with, we have the subject matter experts here from the consultants, as well as our administrators here. Thank you all again. Again, it's just the beginning. I don't think anything is fully cooked, ready to serve up, but we're excited and we're moving closer. So thank you all again. And I'll turn it over to Sarah Biviano. I think she's still on. There you are, Sarah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Our next committee of the day will be the Public Service Committee. Those committee members are Mosley, Hamer, Holland, Lombardo, and McKittrick. Whenever you're ready, Madam Chair.
I'm ready now, Sarah. We have one piece coming before us, but if we could get approval of our previous meeting minutes, that would be great.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Have it. Okay. We have one piece coming before us is an ordinance authorizing the service director or his designee to bid, use CUE bids, state bids, Sourcewell, and or Omni Public Partners public sector bids, and enter into a contract or contracts for the purchase and or lease of various vehicles and equipment for the parks maintenance and street cleaning divisions and declaring an emergency. Mr. Leto.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of committee. As you know, every year in budget, we always have equipment purchases in there. Well, this year where we applied for a grant with the EPA, we received a credit back for $270,000, this mitigation grant. So this legislation will allow us to purchase some new equipment before the end of the year. Part of the parks allocation was some of the work that we self-performed and didn't contract some things out. So some extra money there in parks. So to give you just an idea, with this street cleaning grant we received, we're going to buy a brand new 5-ton dump truck, which is about $90,000 for the cabin chassis. And then for the bed, for the plow equipment, the spreader, that's another $120,000. That's $210,000. And then we're going to buy some leaf equipment, another vac to attachment, which is another $60,000. So part of this grant is going to go to that. And then the parks, we're going to buy 3 new mowers, 3 enclosed trailers. So some of this equipment doesn't have to sit outside in inclement weather. Plus it makes it more secure. And then we are going to buy 1 new dump truck, F450, 1.5 ton truck, equipped with a plow, and a spreader. So if we get into a situation, goes back to those we get those 311 complaints, it'll help out in those too, in each ward. So with that, I will take any questions.
Okay. Do I have any questions from committee members? Councilman Mallett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Luddle. I just wanted to ask, I know these are two very specific vehicles, but have these vehicles or has there been broader discussion of whether electric vehicles might be appropriate for any of these uses or across our broader service department fleet?
Well, that's a great question. We are looking currently at street cleaning sweepers and looking at some of the funds that are coming down the pike. So we are looking at possibly how would we recharge these, which would go back to the whole solar panel discussion. So we are looking at that. We're putting together a project right now to apply for funds. We did demo one of the street cleaners. I think it was about a month ago downtown. And it was, other than the brush, you didn't even hear the thing running. So we feel like the sweepers are an 8-hour operation where we could get them back in charge, where this dump truck we're buying that, that could run from one shift to the other. So we're starting with that, and we are looking at some electric vehicles. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. And I'm glad to hear that. Just following up, you mentioned, funds that are coming down the pipe. Do you mean the infrastructure bill, or is there a specific funding mechanism that you're looking at?
Yes, and that's what we would look at, how we would, maximize what equipment and for the electric. We don't feel like these big dump trucks would be a good use, but maybe pickup trucks, okay, where we're using them only 8 or 12 hours a day.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from committee or council members? Seeing none, do I see any? I don't think so. Chris, what's your pleasure?
Consent is fine, ma'am.
Okay, can I get a motion for consent?
Motion for consent.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Ayes have it. We have nothing else coming before us, so we are adjourned.
Our next committee of the day is the Health and Social Services. Those committee members are Amobian, Freeman, Baylor, Neal, and Holland. We do have all members present, except for Councilman Freeman. Councilwoman Amobian, do you want to go ahead and get started, or do you want to give him a minute to join? Madam Chair, you're muted.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Did Mr. Freeman say whether or not he was going to be able to attend?
I did not hear from him.
Okay. Since everyone is present and we need to move forward, let's go ahead.
Okay.
I'd like to call the Health and Social Services Committee to order. Will you do roll call, please?
Sure. Amobian,
Present.
Freeman, Baylor,
Here.
Neal, Councilman Neal, I can see you. Can you hear us? Okay. And Holland.
Aye.
All members are present except for Freeman.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting, please?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Who moved it? There were two voices. at the
Either
same
one
time.
of
heard
us,
Holland.
either one could second, you could just.
Okay, I could tell who did it. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Don't think we have any pending legislation. Is that correct, Mrs. Vivian?
That is correct.
Okay. We have one item for today, and the ordinance is offered by the mayor, Horgan. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to accept and expend funding from the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company Better Future Grant and declaring an emergency. Is there anyone here to speak to this
Yes,
legislation?
yes. Thank you, Madam Chair and Council President. I am here to just speak on behalf of this grant. We have once again been fortunate to receive the Better Future grant monies from Goodyear, which goes towards the Mayor Youth Leadership Council efforts. And in line with the purposes of the grant, MyLC provides a very positive and constructive experience for our area teens. It engages them in various civic and community service programs. It teaches them about how city government works. It helps them. They have dialogue with local city officials, such as our mayor. They'll also be meeting with council members. It has been it's going towards a very, very important program here in the city. It does give teens opportunities to participate in various workshops as well. And recently, MyLC just was a recipient of the Teen Financial Literacy Grant through the U.S. Conference of Mayors, where they're going to be able to engage in workshops for dealing with budgeting and learning about budgeting and using credit cards and et cetera. So going towards very important programs for our teens in our community. The manager for our MyLC program here in the HR department is Myra Snipes, who is present here. And it's also coordinated by Ms. Sharice Freeman. So Myra, I don't know if you wanted to just add a couple things about how the grant will be utilized in the coming year.
Just to add to what you already stated, Director Atkins, our upcoming annual event is our Hugs and Glove event, which we service the community led by the students in distributing items such as hats, scarves, and gloves. Will be at the library, North Library, this Saturday. So that's one of our signature events. We also received an award from the state of Ohio for our financial literacy program. We were creative. Instead of having in-person financial literacy, we did it online. We were recognized by the state. So that's a big accomplishment because this year, the state of Ohio is making it mandatory for financial literacy as a component for graduation. So they are looking very closely at our program. So that's very good news. And as Director Atkinson stated, we're working closely with Goodyear, and they are serving as mentors and being a part of our leadership programs. And we also work with Goodyear on their day of service. So we are excited, and we are looking forward for new recruits this coming year.
Very, very good. It's always nice to be on the cutting edge of something. So do we have these students for a year, or how long do we have them?
Actually, the students can start at ninth grade. So many of those students, they start with us in the ninth grade. That's, like I said, we're recruiting right now and continue through their senior year.
Oh, really? How many can you mentor or have in your program?
Well, right now we're open, actively recruiting students to be a part of our program. So it's like we're starting all over with a group of students so they can be engaged and learning and how it can benefit them. Many of our students were successful and received full ride scholarship because of their involvement and was able to tell the story using MyLC as a component and getting their leadership skills and also their volunteer, which is a requirement by many schools.
Yeah, well, that's great because I tell you, when young people are starting out, they can always get these credit card companies are always attracting young folks in college. So if you have some type of financial literacy, like most of us probably did not, it's always good to have that skill. Are there any questions by committee members?
Yes, Madam Chair.
I can't see anybody, Miss Viviano. Can you tell me if
Madam-
anybody?
Sure. Madam Chair, I can see that Councilwoman Holland and Councilman Neal have their hands raised.
Okay, let's go. I'm sure Mr. Neal will defer to the woman. Councilwoman Holland, go ahead.
Well, thank you so much. I just wanted to say that I think that this program is just wonderful. Thank you both, Ms. Adkins and Ms. Snipes. Every time
that we build a bridge to the young people of our community from the seat of government. We do so many incredibly powerful things. So, you know, as a functional matter, we're teaching financial literacy, but we're also sending a message that transcends even that important message. We are saying that the government really is here to help. We are saying that this is a community that cares about your future. This is a community that wants you to win. And I've just got to believe that out of this cohort or some future cohort, there are future leaders, there are future voters, that we are building the city that we want to see. So thank you both so much. Thank you, Goodyear, for putting its money where its mouth is. This is outstanding, and so nice to have some good news like this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Neal?
Yes, ma'am. My question is sort of like yours. One, how many students, and then do we make sure that we get students from every high school? And, you know, how many, if so, how many can we get? Because I really want to make sure that we leverage this with other programs if possible. Don't need to tell you about the challenges in our schools. We need these children, we need to have programs that can help these children be leaders now because of what's taking place. And so I'd like to know how many students each one, you know, each high school can get into the program.
Okay, in answer to your question, we work closely with the Akron Public School, Ms. Streamer Whitfield. We sent out invitation to all schools, and that was pre-COVID. We were going to do another push in January 2022. Right now, we are trying to make certain we have representatives from all area high schools and the different councils, because we want them to make certain they are the voice. So as far as the number of students we currently have active that are participating, it's between 40 and 50 students. So we are, like I said, restructuring to try to get some of the students from other areas and reaching out to the councils for those schools we don't have representation.
So that's an average of somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to.
Yeah, I would say, like I said, some schools more than others. For an example, we have STEM students. We have the early college, Firestone. But we're reaching out to some of those schools where we don't see representation. For an example, the Garfield Kenmore School. So, and a push was sent out, or an announcement to try to get some students involved. So we're waiting to hear. But like I said, January 2022, we're going to reach out and do our campaign to get some of those students that are not currently represented from the area schools.
Well, another time I'd like to talk to you about that, because when we talk about equitable investment, we know STEM students are going to be pretty good. They've got to focus. But you mentioned Garfield Kenmore, Bookville, Firestone, our neighborhood schools, Ellen. All of our
Firestone is represented. There are some from Bookville. So like I said, we are really reaching out to those schools where we don't see folks currently represented in our council.
Okay. If we as council could get a list of that so that we can work with our colleagues on the school board, and just to tie this back to our last conversation, we can support programs by making sure that each ward has a designated budget to engage youth and youth organizations in their ward, because each one has specific needs, specific challenges. So I appreciate that. Look forward to the information. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Because I said one of the things we want to do is service-led projects, so you can hear the voice of the teams. So we're very much in favor of what you're saying, Mr. Neal.
I just wanted to add one thing, is that Myra and Sharice have done such a phenomenal job with these youths, and it's really made a difference. And it's been showing in the results that we have students who've left here and who've received full ride scholarships to local universities. and have other great things and opportunities that have come their way just because of this program. And it is our goal as well to try and expand this and get as many students as possible to participate. So we have that same interest in doing that. And I think it's a great idea to share the information with council if they're able to also pass along that information with their local school board people that they know. So.
Thank you. Are there other members of the committee or council with questions? You see any other hands, Sarah? Because I can't see a thing. I'm on a
I
small
don't see any
screen.
other hands, Madam Chair.
Okay. What is your pleasure, Mrs. Atkins or Mrs. Snipes?
We were asked to
Consent.
For the legislation, does it need to be passed right
Immediate.
away? Or?
Yes, right away if we can.
Okay. Could we have a motion for suspension of the rules and a favorable report, please?
Motion to suspend the rules for a favorable report.
Thank you. I need a second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and I think that is all for our committee today. Is that correct, Mrs. Viviano?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. And if there's no other questions or concerns, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Our
Thank you.
next committee of the day is the Budget and Finance Committee. Those committee members are Freeman, Amobian, Malik, Baylor, and Lombardo. I can see that Councilman Freeman has signed into the meeting. You want to just give him a moment.
Okay.
There he is. Are you ready, Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you're ready.
All right. It is 3:01 p.m. I'd like to call the Budget and Finance Committee meeting to order. And if we could please have a roll call, Ms. Viviano.
Freeman,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Baylor,
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
All committee members are present.
Okay, thanks to all members for being present. And if I could have a motion to accept the minutes from our last meeting, please.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor, please let it be known by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, have two items today. The first item is an ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with CDW-G LLC for the purchase of CrowdStrike Falcon endpoint detection and response software and 3 years of annual support and maintenance and declaring an emergency. Who will be speaking for us, please?
I will. Thank you, Chairman Freeman and members of the committee. I'm here today to ask for your permission to purchase this software. I also have Engelbert Gal on the line with me. He is from our infrastructure team. We're looking to purchase a new software to replace our current software. It's CrowdStrike. It is to prevent us, it's endpoint security, threat intelligence, and cyber attack response services. I will tell you the Department of IT went through an evaluation process. They looked at multiple softwares and determined that this was the best one for the city. So with that, I'll go ahead and kick it over to Engelbert and see if he has anything he wants to add, but we're just looking for permission to purchase this without the formality of competitive bidding. So Engelbert?
Sure. Thank you very much, everyone. We were with Malwarebytes after the event in 2019. Essentially, we spent a lot of time this year. Our contract is coming to the end just at the end of this year, and we're looking to replace that with something that we feel as though that would protect us, provide additional visibility, as well as has a managed component around protecting all of our desktops and laptops that are out there. So I don't know if there's any questions that you have, but I'd appreciate your support in this one.
Okay, thank you. First, I'll go to the committee. If we have any questions, we would certainly entertain those questions at this time.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Amobian.
Thank you. Now, this software will replace, it would be software for everything, including our financial, and what exactly are we replacing?
Sure. So traditional antivirus, for example, appears on all servers, desktops, as well as laptops. Now, this software essentially is installed on all of these devices that we use regularly, including those that protect our financial systems, as well as our, SCADA systems, or maybe it's something at a community center. So this software is installed on each of those devices and protects it no matter where it's at, whether it's located in our offices, at our homes, or where in the community that we're working with our constituents and our citizens.
Thank you. Now we have to bring our devices in, or you would be able to change the software from
Sure.
a distance.
The switchover process is pretty clear, and pretty easy, and best of all is normally seamless for our end users. So we simply uninstall the existing software, we install it, we ensure that it's working, and we move on. It's really the hope is that the transition is to be very seamless for our end users, but then provides that added all the bells and whistles that comes along with CrowdStrike, as well as that managed component comes along with that. Did that answer your question?
I think you did. I really don't know your world that well. I just know that sometimes
Well, it
we
will
have
be
to
pushed
bring
out
stuff
to your
in.
devices.
Okay, thank you.
You will not have to
Well,
bring
thank
it
you very
in or
much.
anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks,
very
Mr.
good.
Chair.
Any other questions from any other council members? Yeah. Your work is thankless, Mr. Gal, and we know there's a lot. I know I'll turn on my computer and things happen and things install and things uninstall, and I'm none the wiser, and that's okay.
That means that we're doing our job. Thank you, sir, for that.
That's exactly right. So I don't know when we're working on this contract, do you want to pass this out tonight or put it on the consent agenda?
Consent is fine.
Okay. All right, then. If there's no other questions, we could have this item placed on the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have
Second.
a motion and a second for the consent agenda. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right. And Mr. Gal, when we don't see you, we know things are working well. So we enjoy your absence. So
Thank you very much.
well, thank you for all you do. And seriousness, thank you very, very much for everything you do.
Have a good day.
Yes, sir. All right. Our second piece is an ordinance providing for the temporary appropriation for the current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Akron for the period of January 1st, 2022 through March 31st, 2022, and declaring an emergency. And is this you, Miss Goodrich, or Miss Donnell?
Yeah, I'll just speak on this for a little bit. This is our temporary budget. We pass this every year. We have to pass it by the end of November. It covers the first 3 months of 2022. It is just a plan to get us through while we look and evaluate how we ended year end, how our expenditures came in, how our revenues came in, and as we make a plan, a full plan for 2022. And then we go through our robust budget hearings at the beginning of March, as you all know, and I'm sure enjoy. So Mike and Cindy worked very hard on putting this together. I did send out an additional document to you all kind of explaining how we budgeted the ARPA dollars and the various purpose funds. So I hope you had time to review that, but we are just here for questions. If you guys have any additional questions regarding this temporary budget.
Okay, and yeah, we end of November. That's by state regs. We need to have it passed by then, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. And and we'll certainly open some questions. We'll probably not looking to pass this today. We'll go into next week. We just want to make sure that everybody has good time to look at this. Ms. Donnell, open to questions that would come in from the council through this week. And let me go out to council members right now, and I'll begin with Mr. Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the folks in our finance department. I guess a couple of questions. First is can you talk just generally about, how this plan compares to the current, appropriation levels generally? Are there places where there's significant differences from the current appropriation levels?
Okay, so we took a look at our actual expenditures for January through March of 2021 and just did a little bit of rounding and a little bit of adjustment from there. So there are some differences from the 2021 temporary, but it's based more so on the 2021 first quarter actual results.
Okay, thank you very much.
And then I would say, obviously, Shelley had mentioned ARPA. ARPA funding is new. We would have not had any expenditures in the first quarter. So those are an estimate.
Sure, and that's where I was going next. So here we are. So with regard to the document that was sent out, let me just pull this up really quick. So, and thank you for breaking this out. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So when you look at the $9.5 million here, is some of that, some of that is money that we appropriated, through the end of this year that's not going to be spent, and some of it is new money.
Correct.
How much of it is new money?
I mean, ultimately, we're at November 15th, and I don't think we have cut one check for our ARPA fund yet. So ultimately, we asked you all to appropriate in the hopes that we could stand up some of these programming. We are going to do the Akron Cares transfer. We are probably going to have to infuse it with additional dollars in the beginning of 2022. We are going to have to pay some bills to Guidehouse. And we are going to try and stand up some of the other programming as quickly as possible. But in all reality, we're probably not going to spend that much. And we are going to be shutting down our financial system to kind of close the books once we get to mid-December. So a lot of this is going to be stuff that, we just couldn't get the contracts executed and encumbered before we had to shut down the financial system. And so they'll be ready to cut checks as soon as we reopen in January. I will say that we are working diligently in order to get the dashboard up and running. We are going to be purchasing Microsoft Power Business Intelligence to integrate in with Workday so that we have a website that's totally dedicated to ARPA, as well as the dashboard that will be providing real-time information to you all and the public about, what is being spent from the ARPA fund. But ultimately, a lot of this is going to be stuff that we just can't get the contracts executed. And, that we're going to need to spend once we get the financial system up and running. But we are going to spend some this year, but just not as much as I would have, hoped.
Sure. Thank you. That's helpful. And hopefully we'll take a little bit deeper dive into this and send some questions as well. I appreciate it.
Okay, let's see any other hands? So I guess with that, if someone could just please make a motion, we'll just refer this to our business next week.
Motion for time.
Okay, motion for time referral. Second?
Second.
All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, very, very good. And again, questions, comments. We have Ms. Donnell, who I know there were some questions that came in previously and was very, very pleased, as I saw some of the answers and whatnot. Thank you for the complete responses that you gave. So I do not believe we have anything else to come before us. And with that, we will adjourn at 3:13. Thank you so much.
That is the final committee meeting of the day. Council will meet at 7 o'clock tonight.